Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live episode of the Proceed with Passion Q&A series. I'm your host, Terry Schilling. And what I like to do is bring on fellow creative humans, entrepreneurs, writers, solopreneurs, business owners to talk about their journey and share some insightful and actionable advice for you to help grow your business. And today, I welcome a very exciting guest, Eden Bidani. Hello, conversion copywriter of Greenlight Copy. How are you?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you doing, Terry?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Got a lot to talk about. We've kind of hyped you up to talk about conversion copy. So everybody watching is going to walk away knowing how to write a sales page or conversion copy that's going to, get 100% conversion rate, right? Eden, that's what it's about.
Well, close, but at least we can get in the right direction. Look, there's so many variables that go into conversion copy. So it's a process.
Yes, of course. I know. We'll get into those specifics. But again, everybody watching, if you guys want to comment, feel free. If you're watching in the Copy Co-op group or on YouTube, we'd love to have any questions that Eden and I can answer as we talk along in this interview today. But what I like to do, Eden, is always start with hearing about really how you got started with your career. And I like to go through a lot of people's LinkedIn experience to see more about some of the different stops along the way to where they are today. In looking at yours, really it's, where you went to university in Australia, and then you go into direct selling of cosmetic and beauty products. So let's just start right there with, what you were studying at university and then what drove you to that first step in the career.
So I was actually studying at university anthropology and sociology.
Okay.
So they're actually align really, really well with sales and marketing, because they take a more philosophical approach to communication in general. So anthropology is about getting inside, about really understanding the world from someone else's point of view. So they do that by qualitative research, quantitative research, and what most anthropologists used to also do was ethnographic studies. So they'd actually go and live with inside, like really see a group or tribe from the inside out, and they would actually live with them for 6 months, for 12 months, 18 months, dress the same, eat the same food, speak the same language, and actually really immerse themselves. And then they would collect all this qualitative and quantitative information, and then they would go and they would summarize it. So that's basically what we do with a lot of with conversion copywriting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without traveling, without that initial time.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But aside from that, so I had a friend that was starting a direct selling business while I was still finishing off my last couple of years at uni, and so she invited me to come, and I got my first taste of selling, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
What did you want to do with the anthropology studies? Like, what was really the goal going into that before you went into, selling and marketing and copywriting?
Okay, so that a long, long time ago, I wanted to be a forensic anthropologist.
Okay.
Which are the people that perform autopsies. It was kind of a.
Hey, yeah, and then have your own like cable show and Netflix series, kind of based on your life. I like it.
Really, it's a bit of a career change there. So, and then I quickly realized that I faint at the sight of blood. So that kind of scratched that.
Okay.
Idea, and I continued with anthropology anyway because I found it incredibly interesting. So I figured that I would end up working in communications, with regards to communications and in assistance with communications and about position in probably a local council or something, to help with sociological issues and to give guidance there as well. But then I segued into sales, which is it's a very different tangent. Obviously. But actually, it's really funny because there's skills in anthropology and sociology about trying to see from the other person's point of view, seeing how you're perceived, seeing your products, what you're selling, how you're selling to them, try and see it from their point of view, really put yourself in their shoes. So you're able to connect with them in a really genuine way. It doesn't come across as you're really selling them. It's not a hard sell. It's not like direct response, or an insurance salesman going from door to door, knocking on the door, wedging his foot in the door until someone opens up.
Yes.
It's not like that. You can actually connect with people in a really genuine way early on, and then start that conversation and have that conversation lead to a sale.
Yeah. Were you good at the sales? Did you have some good numbers?
We had some good numbers. Yeah, there were ups and downs.
Yeah.
There were ups and downs. You have good days and bad days. I think any sales executive or account rep will tell you that.
Yeah, right.
There's ups and downs with everything, but once you get into a certain rhythm, and it becomes easy. And so that there's usually kind of a certain level or a minimum threshold you're more or less going to make every day. You're going to try and make every day and just keep those numbers forward.
Yeah. And then you transition into really starting your own business. So what was that process like of leaving, you said you were working with a friend, direct selling. You really enjoyed marketing. Yeah. Obviously you've taken the right approach and you have this background. But what made you then decide, hey, I can do this on my own, or let me see how I can grow this myself?
Okay, so my partner and I had the opportunity to as well get to open like a franchise and do it for ourselves. And so we took the bull by the horns and we did it.
Awesome.
And then we ran that for 3.5 years, and we trained our own sales teams under us and everything to sell as well. And it was really fun. It was a really fun time. Very exciting, very dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then that ended in 2015. Then you started Greenlight Copy, correct? From what I'm looking at.
So no, that ended a little bit before, because then I moved overseas.
Okay, got it.
Then I moved from Australia, because that was in Australia, and then I moved overseas to where I am now in Israel.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what was the process like for you, Eden, in defining, what you do and the service that you offer right now? You've had a lot of success writing website copy and sales page and working in teams with funnels and helping them, increase sales and conversion rates. But I'm always interested, like with freelancers and, what we do, how we define our services and communicate that clearly. What was that process like for you determining, what you were ultimately going to sell?
Okay, so it's a long process, and you could even say it's a work in progress, because I think with each project or with each new client, you learn a little bit more about what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Both in terms of projects and in terms as well of niches of different topics and industries that you like to serve. So with each little project, you get a little bit more smarter and a bit more confident as well about delivering results in this, but for the specific types of clients and in specific niches.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a long haul. I started out more in content writing, but all my blog posts had a salesy slant.
Okay.
To them, I was always trying to make a convincing argument to prove a point in the blog post. So it was very easy to transition from that and the sales into actual copywriting, because I quickly found that not all blog posts really should have a salesy slant to them.
Right. Yeah, some of them are just pure informational at times.
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah. Great. And then you transitioned into the copywriting side. So what moment then is in like 4K high definition of your copywriting career that's like, you know what, I can do this and I'm going to go down this path right now?
I think it was really the first time that I secured a client by myself, because I dabbled a little bit in kind of platforms, gig platforms, kind of content farms early on, just to get a taste of the different types of work that was available, different types of gigs, what client, about fulfilling clients' expectations and how to kind of balance all of that out. And I was feeling pretty confident, but then I took those skills and I actually applied and sent out emails, started sending out emails, and I started winning clients one by one, using those same skills. And so I didn't have to, so once I had, I think the first couple of clients, I went, I can actually do this. This is, it's not scary. It's not, it's something that is absolutely possible. You don't have to, it's kind of nice to feel that there's a place that you can always go with it, that you can go with. There's always going to be work. But at the same time, the work is not, it's not the best kind of work, and it doesn't really teach you anything about, it doesn't give you any help in managing a business or running a business or really doing anything client facing, or appearing professional. Kind of chuck something on a Google Doc and send it, or a Word doc, and you send it across. Whereas by winning those clients and then being able to handle the emails, handle the meetings, send proposals and prepare the paperwork and things, it's like, okay, this is not scary. This is something that's definitely doable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so, it's so interesting just like finding that structure, because like when you start out, it is a little bit scary of like, what do I need? How am I going to do this on my own? I relied a lot on a lot of those freelance sites like Upwork and Fiverr. And I got a lot of my jobs to start from Upwork. And, I was at an agency before, so I had the benefit of nice portfolio pieces to really get those jobs on Upwork. But then again, learn kind of what I like to do. I've told a story how my first project ever for a freelance side was ghostwriting a short children's book for like $40. It probably took me like 4 to 5 hours to do. So that was just a big learning lesson. And then, I was writing product descriptions, and then slowly transitioned into, I think, website copy and brand messaging is what I enjoy and what I see a lot of clients need. I feel like I'm good at it. So that's kind of what I'm offering. Do you remember one of your more obscure content pieces or first projects?
I remember it was one through a site. So one of the sites that I was working through, they pre-vetted. It was a much smaller pool of copywriters. Yeah. So there were a lot more jobs available, but I was specially contracted there. They actually reached out to me. The management reached out to me and said, we have a big client and they need, like 500 something like 500 product descriptions. It was for a car website. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this sounds really cool. And that, we'll pay per piece. And I'm just I'm running the numbers in my head. I'm going, wow, that's a lot. Yeah. And I did the first one, and I like broke my teeth trying to write the first one. And I was like, I wrote them back and I said, there's no way I'm going to do 500. And it was like, fill in, it has to have a specific format and every page is going to be the same. And I literally like cracked my teeth doing it. And I just said, there's no way I can do that. Yeah. It was short, it was short. It was like supposed to be 150, 200 words, not supposed to be a lot, but you had to, it was kind of mind-numbing.
Yeah, it's so repetitive. And like you said, you get caught thinking about, this is going to be really good money. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to rephrase this way? I've been there with a couple product descriptions projects or smaller projects.
How can I say the same thing in 500 different ways?
Yeah, the thesaurus. Yes. Yeah, I feel like that's when it's just like the thesaurus becomes your best friend. Like, what's another way to say comfortable? What's another way to say refreshing? Anything like that. So,
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Exactly. Yeah. Well, now, with Greenlight Copy, you focus a lot, like we talked about, on conversion copy. And I wanted to talk to you specifically about landing and sales pages, because I know a lot of people in the group and people watching are freelance writers who write conversion copy. So there's always room to expand your knowledge on, conversion writing tips. But I'll start with this question with landing pages. What is one of the biggest mistakes you see with landing/sales pages?
Oh, the biggest thing I see is that they don't match the other pieces of the funnel. Okay. That's the biggest. You can't, the copy doesn't live on a Google Doc. It lives in the context of all the other elements on the page itself, and as well in the element and context of the funnel. So if you have an ad saying one thing, you have a Google ad saying, service starts at $2.99. Yeah. And you have a landing page and they can't find that information on the page, or it's tucked away on a pricing page or something. So there's a real disconnect for people. So you need to look at kind of what the core messages are on the page and how they relate to what they're, where the traffic's coming from, what they've seen, what they've clicked on, and what they're going to afterwards. So it has to be in the context of both sides. You can't just write anything just because, you can't really write anything. It really has to be in that context, and make sure whatever it is that they've clicked on in the ad is repeated as well on the page.
Okay. Yeah, I guess to follow up, what do you recommend for a structure with that, with the ad and then transitioning it to the landing page? Like, what would you do with the headline then? I obviously know it depends on the context, but also then, like, what are some of your best practices for headlines on a landing page? Do you like asking questions? How do you structure that, or some tips for like beginners or other business owners writing their own landing page?
I think a good tip especially for beginners and when you're coming to headlines, is look at clickbait headlines.
Okay.
Look at clickbait headlines because they know how to hook and keep someone to keep reading straight away. It doesn't mean that what you're going to write in the end will be clickbait, or that it will be make a promise that you don't deliver on the page. That the only reason that people have a problem with clickbait is because it doesn't deliver on the promise that that's included in the headline. If you deliver on that promise in the page, on the same page, it's not clickbait. It's just a really, really, really good headline. So again, if you study clickbait headlines, like even write them out. I mean, not the ones, but even writing out clickbait headlines, and you come to find that there's certain patterns with how. So some of them will ask a question, some of them will. So usually they tie an emotion as well to a benefit at the same time. So you have that juxtaposition of both the emotional, or the right side of our brain, and the logical on the left side of the brain. So you're kind of appealing to both. There's people who are more left brain and right brain are kind of appealing to both at the same time, while still keeping it concise. So I think that's what clickbait headlines really do, and they can really help you just by reading them. It can help you learn how to write good headlines.
Yeah, I love that tip, and it's something that I've looked at. Like, go to BuzzFeed, everybody watching, and see some of the trending articles. Like, again, you're gonna probably roll your eyes like, oh my gosh, but like, what? There's gonna be some that you just click just to find out what's going on, because you're right, clickbait's there. It's like shows canceled on Netflix, and they show your favorite show that could be canceled, but they're just letting you know that inside you're gonna realize that show is still there. But again, that structure is there for you to see, what makes people click and then continue to read. And that's really the big goal for the landing page, is to keep people reading that line after line. But what would you recommend, Eden, that everybody include in the landing page? Like, what's like one thing, one format structure that you should have in your landing page? Okay,
I don't look, there's that we can debate about different structures and different formats, because it's going to depend on what niche, what product you're selling. If it's a product, if it's a service, if it's SaaS, if it's e-commerce. But I think the one thing that a lot of companies, or even a lot of businesses, forget to do is they forget to highlight the problem. Usually with the landing page, it's really early up in the funnel, and it's really early up for someone's marketing stage of awareness. So you'll have people that they're starting to become pain or problem aware, or they might not even yet be pain or problem aware.
Yeah.
And a lot of people leave out. They leave out positioning their product or their service as the solution compared to the problem. They forget to kind of make that connection about, oh, here's our amazing product and here's what it does, but they forget to show, okay, how it solves an actual real world problem.
Yeah.
And even if someone is in a higher stage of awareness and they've landed on the page, it doesn't mean that you can't include that reference to the problem on a later section on the page, like sort of as an afterthought, like, oh, you got the way down here, by the way, this is just a reminder of why this is good, or why it's an effective solution.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I love that. And then with customers of, speaking to the right audience, I mean, a big part of that is research. So what are some of your research tips to make sure that you're speaking to the right people at the right time? You just touched on, defining the problem. But then how do you get there from the research side? What are some tips that you have?
So there's a couple of different things you can do. First of all, you can, one of my favorite things to do is browse Reddit threads.
Yeah.
Do a Google to go down the rabbit hole of Reddit and start looking for. You can type the common problem that the product or the service is solving, and just start pouring through Reddit threads, and you will find some really rich contextual explanations and descriptions of how people are struggling with a certain problem, or what's really bothering them, what they're not really talking about, or they might not necessarily share in an interview or in a survey, because it's they're more in your face, they're more direct forms of communication. Reddit, forum, someone can come and leave a comment and then disappear. So they feel comfortable to kind of open up on a deeper level, which is very interesting. Facebook groups as well. If you dig deep into Facebook groups, and there's a lot of really specialized Facebook groups. So for example, I'm doing a research for a client in Australia, and we were looking for small business owners, and there are like 100 Facebook groups for small business owners in Australia. So there's just, there's so much data already spread there, in there, spread across those groups. Just have to go in and have a peek around and start collecting the bits of information. What are their problems? What are they struggling with? And as well, what solutions they're currently using, to try to see what other people are commenting, and the advice that they're giving, what solutions they're suggesting, and sort of figure out how your product or solution is going to fit in to that context.
Yeah. No, excellent tips. How often if you see like a good comment or phrase from somebody, from a real customer, or something you read on Reddit, how often are, big advocate of using exactly what they said in the landing page, like using that, direct voice, of the customer?
Absolutely. If not direct, as close as possible to.
Yeah, maybe direct. Just tailor it a little bit. Yeah, I think that it's such a big step with research. It's something that I've really gathered with conversion copy, is taking those exact language, like how they phrase it. It's like, oh, this is interesting. This is hitting a lot of feelings here. Include that in your sales page. You don't always have to follow the power words and flood it with keywords, right? Use some of that, direct voice from things that you research online. I think those are great tips.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what they do in anthropology and sociology when they're preparing a research study. They use these interviews. They conduct surveys to get a quantitative reference of 50 people responded, 100 people responded. We surveyed 2,000 people. X said this, Y said this, Z said this, but then they supplement that with voice of customer research. They supplement that with one-on-one interviews, because that's kind of the backbone that adds the content, that adds so many different layers of context. It adds those feelings, those emotions, those things that you can't really get out of dry numbers, or of, on a scale of 1 to 5, what do you feel, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
It really adds those rich layers to communicating. It's really incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question here from somebody who reached out beforehand, wanting to talk about call to action, more specifically like micro copy. Do you have go-to phrases or ways to frame your call to action buttons besides saying just learn more, or click here, buy now?
So I think, and I know Joanna Weeb from Copy Hackers quoted it somewhere. I can't remember it, but think of the call to action button as there's kind of two camps here. One is where you picture the call to action button. You say, I want you to do X. It's what you want the customer to do. So I want you to buy now. I want you to add to cart. I want you to download now. I want you to join the list. So kind of framing that in that really direct kind of way.
Okay.
Simply because call to action buttons, there's a lot, and unless they already know what's on the other side of the button, clicking a button can be scary. Putting your information on a form can be scary. It's scary because they don't know what's going to happen next. Am I going to get spammed? Am I going to get download the right thing? Is someone going to try and, say, are they going to send me 10 emails a day trying to sell me something? There's, is the product going to be really good? Add to cart. Okay, we're going to check out. Is the product really going to deliver on its promise? I read all these amazing things. Is it actually going to happen? So there's a risk for them to click on the call to action button. So if you make it really, really clear, then that helps reduce that risk. At the same time, there's another camp that says you can have a bit of fun with it. People see these boring call to action buttons all the time, so why not have a little bit of fun? So you can inject the brand voice, you can inject their own voice into it. Something that I've seen done well, Justin Blackman from Pretty Fly Copy. His button, he's got a button on his website that says poke this. Like it's really, it's poke this, but it's injected his own voice.
I like that. It's super friendly. I feel like you can just visualize just slowly poking it. It's just curious, like, okay, what is on this other side? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So there are ways so you can, again, it's the kind of two copywriting camps, clear versus clever. It's going to depend a lot on the audience and who you're speaking to, and as well the brand voice. If the brand voice is in general a bit smart, a bit fun, a bit playful, you can try playful as well. But it's always a good thing to test.
Yeah. No. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I love what you mentioned with Joanne from Copy Hackers is just kind of leading on to what's the next side, or just like click here, like we're going to take you there. Like using like even the first person sometimes, like I'll take this now, even as like a call to action button, like put them in like the forefront, the customer, like the reader. Awesome. Yeah. Great tips there. I want to know though too, I hear a lot about different copywriting power words. I talk to them about like when I do some individual trainings that I use, like use these in subject lines or in the body copy sales pages, but use them carefully, tread lightly, of course. But what would you say 2 to 3 of your favorite conversion power words and why, Eden?
Oh, okay. So probably the first one would be you, because it's always powerful when you're not talking about yourself as a brand, when you're actually putting things in the context of whoever's reading it. So that's how it's the easiest way to make an instant connection with someone. So you try to include it wherever possible. That said, don't go overkill. It's really easy to go overkill with it. But simply by trying. So if you've written a sentence, even if it's from a brand point of view, if you've written a sentence on an about page and it says we da 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 da, try swapping the we with you. Yeah. And then you'll be able to reframe that phrase in the context of whoever's reading the page. So it comes off less, so it doesn't come off as, from top level. It's like you're meeting them where they're at. Yeah. Second one would probably be get.
Get, okay.
Get is very quick. It's implying that you are getting something, and that it's close, and that you're going to be getting it soon, that it's going to come, that there is a value or there's a benefit that you will be getting close. It's that action, it's an action word, but it's also reflective of the user. It's like you're getting something. It's not I'm giving you something. You're getting something. So what? Right. Everyone wants to get stuff. Yeah. Everyone wants to get stuff. People Popeyes gives out free chicken sandwiches. Everyone wants to go to Popeyes. So, people like to get, they like to receive. So again, it's kind of that reflexive, looking at it from the customer's point of view. Yeah.
Last couple questions here, Eden, and that's great. I've never really heard people say get before, but I'm with you. It's like we live in this world of just getting instant access to things with Amazon Prime and all our streaming sites. So using that word more. And even we just talked about like micro copy with CTA buttons. I think that word is really strong to use even before they click something. So yeah, that's great. Now we talked a lot about, your formatting, or like really your philosophy, if you will, for conversion copy of, talking about the problem and, thinking how customers think and putting yourself in their shoes. Do you have an example of you got a project, you just made a few quick tweaks and then it tested and you got higher conversions? Because I just love hearing these examples. And if I caught you off guard with this question, I understand. But like maybe you have a clear example of like, hey, we switched this word around and guess what happened? Look at the results.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I know that there was one where we redid. It's not a specific like word or two, and we saw an instant lift. It was more they kept. I worked with a client on a landing page for a sleep device for insomniacs.
Okay.
So it was introducing. It was basically an advertorial. So it was introducing the product. It was positioning the product against the problem and how it's solving the problem, and then leading. So the pitch wasn't on the page. You had to click through to actually go to the sales page to actually be sold on the product. So, and I remember, so the control landing page, which was converting around 4 or 5%, did a really good job of explaining the product and how it worked, but it didn't quite highlight the problem. It did, it said, yes, it's for insomniacs if you're having trouble sleeping, but it lacked kind of the rich contextual description of the problem. So my client asked me to write a different version. And I remember clearly it was really fun writing the first couple of paragraphs because it was almost story based. It was walking them through how difficult it is to live a normal life when you're really, really tired, when you're exhausted, and you get home and you've gone through a long day and you get home and you still can't sleep. Like it's it breaks people. It's really hard. So and that landing page, and from what I remember, they kept all the visuals, all the images the same in the same places. So they're really looking at testing the copy, and the new variation converted at 21%. So that was a big lift.
Wow. Yeah, just by switching to more specific problems and hitting some bigger pain points. Like I love that. Like how hard, I mean, weirdly saying, I love how hard it is to fall asleep for insomnia, but just like how you phrased it. And I think that's a big lesson, is really diving into those emotional problems that people deal with. Like there's the things on paper that you always see and like the features that this is going to help you. But it's like the common saying of like, what's the benefit of the benefit? So the benefit is, cure your insomnia, but what will that do for you? What's the benefit of that? It's like, oh, you don't have to live with so much stress wondering if I'm going to fall asleep tonight, as an example.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. It's really unpacking, like you said, the benefit of a benefit. It's really unpacking that. So you can, anyone can say, you'll fall asleep faster. I mean, that's what everyone says. But so what does it mean if you're going to fall asleep faster? What does it actually mean? So really unpacking all of that in contextual, to get to those deep stories. That what does that really mean for them? That means they're going to wake up refreshed in the morning. It means they're not going to have 3 double lattes before lunch. It means they're going to come home. It's they're not going to dread the commute home from work. When people are commuting to work.
They're
not going to commute home from work because they know they're going to be able to just relax and they'll be able to go to bed and go to sleep and it's going to be all fine. Like just really positioning that the before and the before and after as well. What life is like before and what life is going to be like after. Because I know Talia Wolf as well from Get Uplift says this really well. She said your product or service is the means. It's like the means to an end. It's not an end in itself. Even a luxury handbag or something, it's not about the product. It's about what your product or service does for them. Yeah.
What is it like? A lot of those things like beauty products, it manufactures cool and your best self. It's like, the product is one thing, of course, but you don't need it. You want it. So like, let's drive those wants. Like, why do you want this so bad? What is that vision of yourself once you have this bag? Love that. And it all comes back to, it's so interesting, like from the anthropology side of it. And I know you've spoken on this before to other people as well, like in other events. So tying that into, I think it just frames it where people can really write with more empathy for the customer, which I think lacks a lot with those salesy, scammy sales pages that we see.
Yeah, it helps you make a genuine connection quickly, and that all the communication. If you make a genuine connection in the beginning, then most communication coming after is also going to feel genuine. It's all about making a good first impression.
Yeah.
And so if you approach someone with empathy, that you're looking to help them, that you're not looking to sell them, it's like, oh, I'm going to sell you. People freak out.
Right.
No one wants to be sold to. People want to learn. So if you position, if you write in a way, like you said, with empathy, if you write in a way that's non-confronting, but you're still helping them arrive to the natural conclusion that your product or service can help them, it's genuine communication. It's not selling, even though it is selling. It doesn't feel like selling.
Yeah.
Which is great, because sales pages, selling is scary. A lot of people find selling really scary, and they don't even like to use the word selling. But when you do it with empathy and you do it in with that genuine communication involved, it doesn't feel like traditional selling.
Yeah, it feels more of like a conversation, like you're speaking to one person and you're just talking about them, how this can help you. And I love the example you use. It almost seems like you could have got that from Reddit, where you talked about you don't need your 3 afternoon lattes or your 3 lattes a day. I mean, even that in like a Facebook ad as a headline could be really strong. And then when they click to get to the landing page, there's more of that empathy. And then I know, Eden, I feel like we can have you back on again to talk about the different formulas that you can use, like the PASS formula or the AIDA formula. But again, I don't want to, you to go off of that. I'm sure, again, it always depends on the context of how you're going to approach it. But Eden, we did have a Facebook user just here with a comment. Look at this, just all fire emojis after we were just talking about that. Clearly, they got some fire value there. So I love that. Yeah. So, Eden, I always like wrapping up with these couple questions. First, I want to know, and correct me, you're in Israel right now?
Yes.
And so I imagine, or do you have a lot of just international clients kind of from all over?
I do. I have quite a few local clients, but I also have a lot of international clients.
Yeah, and so I'm just curious, do you have any like specific digital tools that you use, and what are some of your favorite tools that you have to run your business every day? And even if there's some typical ones, I always love learning what people are using and how they utilize them for their business.
So I'm using right now my top 3, probably Calendly.
Okay.
To help schedule. I don't always send people, but often I'll use Calendly to just help.
Yeah.
There we go. It's all right.
You're good.
Use Calendly to help schedule. I use Better Proposals for my proposals. I love Better Proposals. It's such a smooth and professional experience for clients.
What was that one again?
Better Proposals.
Better Proposals. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few different ones around, but this is the one that I found is the best.
Okay.
So the part that I know, it's really excellent. It helps you. You can just put a professional proposal together in like minutes once you have all the things set up.
Yeah.
It looks good, and it's easy, and it's with digital signing and everything involved. So it's kind of a full package. Yeah. What else? I really like to use Draftium.
Okay.
For wireframes. Draftium it's really like a drag and drop tool. It's much quicker than I've used Balsamiq and other tools in the past. I've used Canva as well, but I find Draftium is really, really super easy to use. It's extremely intuitive. It takes me half the time to draw something up in Draftium, a wireframe of a landing page, that it used to do in Balsamiq. Balsamiq took me 4 or 5 hours trying to move all the elements right.
Okay.
It's very simple.
Yeah, I actually surprisingly haven't really heard too much on Draftium before. I know there's a lot of tools where you can create wireframes, and I've used Canva a lot, but Canva, I feel like you can just get sucked into wanting to make it look so damn good because there's so many templates. But yeah, and I guess, touch on, the wireframe aspect of it, like of offering that, because I know a lot of website copywriters don't do that, or like landing pages, they just send a Google Doc, which is something I did for a while. But now I do more screen recordings and try to give them a wireframe to help with the visual direction as well. So how do you utilize that? How long have you been doing that for?
I have a little bit of an advantage. So I studied visual communication.
Okay.
a long visual communication designer a while back, but I don't know how to use Photoshop. I don't know how to use any complicated tools at all, but I have kind of basic understanding of how things should be set out. It's not something difficult. It's not something that's really difficult to learn. It's more you know, as you're writing your copy, you have an idea of how things should look on the page. You know, this is the header, this is the subheading, this is where the CTA button goes. But I find that when it sounds selfish, usually the wireframe is for the client, but I actually write the wireframe for myself. I find the copy that I'm able to really self-edit the copy a lot, but just by putting it in the context of a page, and they'll go, oh, hang on, no, this sentence looks too long because it's going to take up a bit of space. Even though a designer is going to come in, she's going to change the fonts, the size, you know, he or she will change the fonts, the sizes, the images, they'll give context to everything, and they'll make it look really nice. But it's just, it puts those things into perspective as well for me while I'm writing, so that I have a clear, again, it's like, oh, so this should be 2 separate sentences. So then I'll separate the sentences as well in the Google Doc, or this should be 2 paragraphs. So this should be columns, or this should, you know, just to give you an idea of how it can look, so that the flow of information, the flow of the messaging on the page is in the right format, so that stays through. So a designer can look at it and go, okay, and she doesn't put a subheading here and a CTA button here, and just so that all flows well. Yeah, no, it's such a great add-on too for the client, just for them to see the value. But like you said, for yourself, like selfishly, it's like it helps you see the copy of how it could look out there across the internet and on that page. So I think that's just a super helpful tip for writers. Instead of just delivering a Google Doc, it's one of those things of like doing the little things really well and like going up a notch, like what other writers aren't doing, by adding just a simple wireframe. And like you said, Draftium, easy to use tool that you can use to do that. So that's awesome. I wrote those down too, the better proposals in Draftium. So thank you. So another thing as well, just about wireframes, it cuts down the number of edits from the client side, because when you present or share a piece of copy with a client, they have an idea of kind of what it's already going to look like in the end. It's not just, they're not judging the copy just by itself. They're looking, oh, okay, so I get what you meant when you said, you know, put an icon here or put an image here, or really they have a clear picture. They're like, oh wow, this looks really cool. You're like, I know it's not finished. Let your designer finish it. This is not what it's going to look like, but at least it helps put it into perspective for them from a client's point of view, what their page or what their site or their landing page is going to look like in the end. So they go, oh, and it really cuts down the number of edits, because then it's no longer so much about the copy. I mean, they see, obviously, if there's things in the copy that need to be fixed, they'll be able to tell you, but it's in the context of the page. So it's not all, it's not all only on the copy anymore. That's like a huge benefit of the benefit, is less edits for the writer. I feel like if I had an alarm just to go off of like how good of a tip that is for people, or just an extra benefit for it, and I let it go. That's awesome. That's great too. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do this a little more. I feel like I'm continue to grow of how I deliver the copy and show people. But something like that would definitely be super helpful. I know we have a few people watching here. If you guys have any questions before we kind of wrap this up, please fire away. But I have one last question, until we get some other ones potentially. But Eden, I always, 2-part question, a little more fun. I just want to know, are you more of a burrito or pizza person? Oh, that's a good question. Pizza. Pizza. All right. I ask you this, Eden, because if you were to build your success pizza, after all your experience, what are the 3 key ingredients to that success pizza? So think characteristics. Don't be like sausage, pepperoni. more like legitimate, actual characteristics. Okay. I think, that's a really good question. Okay. I think the first one is I think it's a hunger to learn. Okay. Characteristics. Always be hungry to learn, to keep learning. Yeah. You can always keep learning something new, another technique, another piece of software, another way for writing a headline. Keep your eyes open. Don't just get stuck in a rut. Keep your eyes open and keep absorbing new pieces of information. The staying hungry to learn has been a big part of that, as well. 3 ingredients. Okay.
It's all good. I didn't mean to throw you off.
No, it's all right. So in the success pizza, so the second one I would say is definitely not being how do I even say it? Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. So start doing things that push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone. Like start doing something. If you think it's scary, it can be a good thing, like a really good thing to help you grow your business. So whatever seems scary. So if it's the first time presenting a wireframe to a client, it's scary. It's the first time hopping on a Zoom call with the client with the camera on, or if it's sending them an intake form before you actually start, before you even go to a call. So all these little things that sound scary. Hopping on an interview, all these things can sound scary, but you keep doing them one by one, and they get less scary. And then you suddenly look back and you go, wow, your business or your progress has come a really far way.
Yeah. And last one, right? We got one more.
Last one is, I think, just to practice. Just practice. Just even write bad copy. Like really, just write bad copy. Open a Google Doc and start typing to get the stuff out. Sometimes you sit there with a blank page and you're like, where do I even begin?
Right.
But sometimes just have to actually start typing whatever comes into your head at the time, just to keep practicing, to keep your fingers to keyboard, and then suddenly sometimes you have to, sometimes the inspiration doesn't always come from within. You sometimes have to force yourself to start doing to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Love those. Love them. Awesome, Eden. Nice. That sounds like a delicious success pizza. Love those 3 ingredients. Thank you for answering. I love that question. It gets people to think, and I just love how people frame it. Like, of course, I get some repetitive answers, but that's completely fine, because I just like hearing how people frame it and how they include that into their journey and why they think that that's been a key to their success. So yeah, I always love it, like ending on that question. So Eden, that's it. We did it. Thank you so much for joining the Proceed with Passion Q&A. This was great. I know a lot of people watching the replay too are going to get a lot from this. We had a few people watching, so thank you for watching along. And as we wrap up, I'll give you the floor here, Eden. So tell people where they can follow you, and if anything that you have coming up that you want to promote, feel free.
Oh, okay. No, nothing coming up right now at the moment in terms of promotion, but the best place to probably find me is on LinkedIn. Okay. So that's I'm not really on Facebook, so it's just it's LinkedIn.
Yeah, find her on LinkedIn. Go to greenlightcopy.com if you're interested in learning more about what she does and some of her services. But yeah, Eden, thank you so much. This was really great. I appreciate you taking the time.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of Proceed with Passion. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.